Charlie Hopkins lives in Melfort, Saskatchewan these days, but back in the 1950s, he was chairman of a resourceful group of rural residents which came to be known as the Whittam Snowplow Club. That's because during the winter of 1958-59, they built this self-propelled snowblower. Bob Blakely was away working in Saskatoon at the time, but he clearly recalls their need for a reliable way to keep the Whittam area roads clear in winter.
I remember at Whittam, they used to keep the roads open for horse and sleighs. If you had a 33 Ford car, you could drive on the same track as a sleigh, so if you could steer straight enough, you didn't get stuck, and if you got off the track, you were there till spring.
The snowblower unit itself was built by a company out of Saskatoon known as Richardson Road Equipment. Initially, the Whittam group tried mounting it on a tractor, but that gave them very little protection from the harsh winter winds.
Driven by club members, and I guess if I never spent a winter plowing roads in the district, but anybody that did wasn't real keen on doing it a second time. And
they decided to mount the snowblower on a combine instead and purchased a 1938 Massey Harris 20 from a nearby dealer. It came with a 16-foot header, but that was quickly removed.
Well, we got the body off it and the hopper and the framework, and we got it to a point where we could get it into Grover Haven's shop on the farm. And that's where we worked at it. And I was at it for 44 days that winter, I believe.
Here we see a picture of the group that worked on the snowblower project that winter. Hopkins figures the main reason why the combine was even available was that it was perhaps ahead of its time as a combine. As a result, only about 500 were ever built.
And he got this machine all built, 16-foot header, 37.5-inch cylinder. This was in 1938. Well, swathing it was not much more than started. And the machine was too big.
The snowblower has a 45-gallon fuel tank and no gauge, so the fuel level had to be checked with a stick. The unit is equipped with a pair of Chrysler Industrial 6-cylinder gas engines. One runs the snowblower and the other drives the wheels. Bob Blakely told us that this was an effective way to run a snowblower.
So it gave you, in effect, a variable drive, because you could run your blower motor. The roads sometimes were quite deep with drifted snow, and so you had to go slowly, and yet you wanted the fan running full speed, so you couldn't do that with one engine unless you had two transmissions, and so this was done the other way, just simpler to put two engines in it.
The snowblower is mounted on a hydraulic cradle on the combine, which allowed them to raise and lower it from the cab just like a combine header.
And you had all that glorious heat from the engines, which when you were using tractors, if you had a cab, you maybe had some heat. If it was a heat houser, you had very little heat. And this one was good and warm.
This picture shows the snowblower in action back in the early days. Hopkins says they had some trouble due to the oil bath air cleaners on the engines, which took in lots of snow after it went through the blower.
And in that blowing snow, there's road grit, and lots of it. Well, it all froze up overnight in this oil bath air cleaner and everything. So the operator there one winter, after the first one, he just took the oil bowl off the bottom of those things, and they just sucked air, no filtering. But those doors opened to let air in and heat out, and they were sucking up the grit like you wouldn't believe, and it was exceedingly hard on the engines. Yeah, they had to have rings a couple of times.
Eventually, rural municipalities took over the job of keeping roads clear in winter, and the Whittam group no longer needed this unit. But it worked well on their 56 miles of roads for a number of years. Hopkins figures it cost them about $3,500 in total at the time, which was money well spent.
I've never experienced anything like a community coming together to do a job for a very good reason, and to see the cooperation, the neighborliness, it was beyond belief.
Hopkins was involved in the initial snowblower project as well as 2 restorations since then, including the latest one due to a fire a few years ago. Bob Blakely was there to help out with both restoration efforts. They have donated the self-propelled snowblower to the Melfort and District Museum, where it can be enjoyed by future generations.